Welcome to the Tom Sense Show, right here, right now, wherever you are tuning in across this great nation. We are on the air and we do things a little differently around here. You can drop a question in the YouTube chat at any point during this broadcast, and if it is a real question worth answering, I will take it right then and there in the middle of the news. We leave the noise behind and we stick to the facts. Coming up this hour, the White House hits the brakes on immigrant visas, Tehran discovers the United States Navy means business, and the Washington establishment loses its mind over a building facade. Let us get straight to work. President Donald Trump is making a direct play for the American grocery cart, and the professional political class in Washington, D.C. does not know how to handle it. The administration announced a temporary tariff pause on up to 300,000 metric tons of imported foreign beef. The goal from the Oval Office is simple: cut beef prices by 25% for American families who have been crushed by record grocery inflation, especially with our domestic cattle herd sitting at a 75-year low. Naturally, some of the usual suspects on Capitol Hill are clutching their pearls. Senate Majority Whip John Barrasso of Wyoming came out swinging, claiming this move undercuts American ranchers who need market protection. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins went on defense on Tuesday, explaining that this is a temporary fix while United States Trade Representative Jamieson Greer works through sourcing negotiations. Look at the reality here. The America First agenda has always been about putting the working citizen first. When inflation is hammering family budgets at the supermarket checkout line, a leader steps in to deliver real relief. The critics want pure theory, but people cannot eat theory for dinner. President Trump knows that protecting domestic industries and keeping working families fed are not mutually exclusive goals. If our domestic herd is at the lowest level in 3/4 of a century, giving families immediate breathing room while the supply rebuilds is just basic economics. The establishment Republicans want to argue over textbook dogma, while everyday Americans are just trying to afford ground beef for their kids. The State Department just hit the pause button on the entire global immigrant visa assembly line, and the Open Borders lobby is having an absolute meltdown. Officials confirmed on Tuesday that all immigrant visa applications across every single United States embassy and consulate are frozen worldwide. The reason is refreshingly simple. Consular officers are undergoing mandatory, specialized retraining so they can properly screen out applicants who are likely to depend on United States public assistance. Visa appointments have been canceled across the globe while diplomatic posts roll out new evaluation guidance and strict screening protocols. Immigration lawyers and advocacy groups are already flooding the airwaves with outrage, complaining that hundreds of thousands of applicants are stranded after spending years in the system and thousands of dollars on interviews. But here is the plain reality that Washington ignored for decades. Coming to the United States is a privilege, not an entitlement. Federal law has always stated that newcomers must be able to support themselves rather than relying on American taxpayers to foot the bill. The Trump administration is simply enforcing the statutes that were already on the books. For years, the federal government handed out approvals with a rubber stamp and sent the invoice straight to working citizens. Retraining the bureaucracy to actually read the financial disclosure forms before handing over a visa is the most sensible thing our diplomatic corps has done in 20 years. If your plan upon arrival is to sign up for public benefits, you can stay right where you are. Tragedy unfolded in Sudan on Tuesday as violent militants launched coordinated assaults across South Kordofan state, leaving 27 innocent people dead, including 4 children. The attacks were carried out by fighters from the Sudan People's Liberation Movement North, an outfit allied with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Medical officials from the Sudan Doctors Network reported that the strikes hit civilian populations in the Kadugli and Abu Hitan regions, setting off a massive wave of displacement as families fled for their lives. The medical group warned that this ethnically targeted violence threatens to swallow the entire Kordofan region. At the same time, the Rapid Support Forces have shut down local markets and cut off satellite internet access in West Kordofan, severely worsening an already desperate humanitarian crisis. International aid organizations and the United Nations are pleading for an immediate halt to attacks on civilians and the opening of safe humanitarian corridors. This brutal escalation shows the true cost of unchecked paramilitary violence and lawlessness abroad. When radical armed factions operate without restraint, innocent families and young children pay the heaviest price imaginable. The world must recognize the sheer barbarism taking place in these contested regions, where basic civilian infrastructure is systematically destroyed and innocent populations are driven from their homes at gunpoint. The legal drama over the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts has reached peak Washington absurdity. The Department of Justice filed arguments in federal court stating that the Performing Arts Center could face physical demolition and total financial ruin unless President Donald Trump gets proper naming recognition. Justice Department attorneys argued that vital donor funding for necessary renovations will vanish if the president's name does not appear on the building facade, the plaza, or the endowment funds. This all started because the center's board attempted to put up signage that reads "Renovated and Restored by President Donald J. Trump" after an earlier court injunction. Democratic Representative Joyce Beatty, who sits on the board, filed a lawsuit claiming this violates the 1958 Kennedy Center Act, and a federal judge is now set to hear the case. Think about the sheer hypocrisy from the capital city elite. Washington will happily slap the name of every obscure bureaucrat and donor on public monuments, but the moment the sitting president provides the backing to keep a crumbling cultural institution from literally falling apart, they call in the federal marshals. The building is in desperate need of repairs. The funds are on the table, and the left would rather see the roof cave in than look at 8 gold letters on the front door. That tells you everything about their priorities. The regime in Tehran is trying to play hardball in the Persian Gulf, but their bluff is failing fast. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadi announced on Tuesday that the Strait of Hormuz remains officially closed, throwing cold water on reports that a new arrangement with Oman had reopened the waterway. Diplomats from Iran and Oman had been talking about setting up an emergency commercial shipping corridor, but Tehran insists the strait will stay restricted until the United States bows to its previous demands. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump made the reality very clear, stating that the United States Navy has already cleared or detonated all maritime mines in international waters, and delivering a sharp warning that any new Iranian mine-laying vessels will be destroyed immediately. The White House flatly denied participating in any direct talks with Tehran, despite claims from Pakistani mediators. Global energy markets are watching every move as commercial vessels navigate the high-risk passage. Iran thinks it can hold 20% of the world's petroleum supply hostage by making threats from the shore. But the United States military is not playing diplomatic games. When our Navy sweeps the waterway and tells the world the sea lanes are open, a press release from a deputy minister in Tehran carries zero weight. If the Iranian regime wants to challenge American naval power in international waters, they are going to learn a very expensive lesson very quickly. You cannot make this up. United States Capitol Police arrested 35-year-old Philan Tamdouileh of Julian, California, right next to the Supreme Court. What was he hauling? A fully assembled, operational wooden guillotine sitting right in the open bed of his pickup truck. Officers spotted the truck illegally, parked along the 100 block of East Capitol Street, directly beside the Capitol complex and the nation's highest court. The suspect drove all the way across the continental United States from Southern California with an 18th century execution apparatus in tow. He was taken into custody without incident and charged with carrying a dangerous weapon, while federal investigators dig into his background to figure out what his plan was. Security remains on high alert around congressional and judicial buildings after several recent incidents. For years, we have been subjected to endless lectures from coastal activists about political violence and dangerous rhetoric. Then a man drives 3,000 miles with an actual French Revolution decapitation machine in the back of his Ford, parks it in front of the Supreme Court, and acts like it is standard luggage. You almost have to admire the sheer audacity of driving across 11 states with an 8-foot wooden blade without a single person asking for a permit. Washington security took him off the street, and he can spend his upcoming court dates explaining his woodworking hobby to a federal judge. That is the news this hour on the Tom Sense Show. Keep your head high, stand up for this country, and I will see you right back here next time.